I do have moments where I go, who am I to talk about empowering women when we've got a situation in Afghanistan, the situation in Texas, where literally women in this world are completely disempowered. But if I can make one woman think, do you know what? I'm going to leave that crap to one side and I'm going to go to that occasion. I'm going to turn up to that event because I deserve to be there, because I'm worthy of being there despite what I look like, then that matters to me. That's a step forward.
Hello, friends. Simon Gibson here. Welcome to this week's episode of Success Won't Come Calling, which is the podcast for you if you want to be better tomorrow than you were today. My guest this week is going to be Angela Spencer. Angela is the founder of Virago Wellness, and she's a self-discovery coach who works mainly with women to help them achieve their potential in terms of whatever they plan for their goals in life. So I'm really looking forward to meeting Angela today. She's got a fantastic business. She's got a really interesting story. I'm going to introduce her in a little bit more detail later on. But first of all, hello to Jacob, who's my technical supremo. How are you doing, man?
Very well, mate.
Good. We've got no Stacey at the minute. She's going to turn up in time for Angela's episode, but you literally can't get the staff. Yeah. I've got to do my start of a 10 now, guys. And what I was reflecting on this morning was that this, as we sit here in 2021, our next generation in the world have got a very expensive period ahead for them. And what I mean by that is we're coming out of a global pandemic, but that's not the half of it. We've got huge challenges in terms of the healthcare systems throughout the world. We've got climate change to tackle, and we've got the fallout that's going to occur from the withdrawal from Afghanistan in terms of establishing and maintaining some form of improved international relations. And I think the general feedback we're getting from governments throughout the world is that all of this has got to be funded through increasing taxes. And I understand the reason for that, but I've got to ask, where is this tax coming from? Because whatever you call the tax, if it's VAT, if it's national insurance, if it's income tax, if it's corporation tax, the only way you get more tax is if you've got more money. And what you need for a nation to get more money? Well, the answer, in my opinion, is you need more businesses. And particularly, you need more young entrepreneurs. And when I was thinking about this morning, I was asking myself, if I wound the clock back 10 years to when I started my first business, what did I need to get things up and running, to get me growing, to get me earning, and to get a team who were also contributing to the taxes of the country? And the answer is two things. Two things I think an entrepreneur needs. The first is money. They need money to start their business and to grow their business. And the second is advice. They need the right people that they have access to help them form the business, get the business functioning properly, and then to grow the business. And I've got to say, guys, I've got a lot of sympathy for young entrepreneurs now, because I'm just not convinced that either of those resources are readily available for them. And this is why I say that. I was listening to Jeff Bezos, who we know is the founder of Amazon, CEO of Amazon, and he was talking about the advantages of being an entrepreneur against the advantages of being an employee. So I suppose you would put that, the advantages of working for yourself against the advantages of working for someone else. And what Jeff said was, he said, you can either choose a life of comfort or you can choose a life of adventure. Now, I think that's a fantastic statement from Jeff. It's throwing the gauntlet down. It's basically saying, don't just saunter along in your life with an easy paycheck at the end of the month. Go on your own adventure, pursue your own dreams and your own vision. And I think that's a real call to action for young entrepreneurs, and it's great. But what then? What if someone has an idea? What if they've got out their idea and they've got 50 quid? Where do they go? What do they do then in terms of taking their business to the next level? And go back to what I said earlier. You need money and you need advice. Where'd you go for that? Well, I've done some digging this morning. And if your answer to that question, where'd you go, is you look for government resources, well, they are available. I checked out, I'm in the UK. I checked out the government's website on this, and there's a page for support for young entrepreneurs. That's what the page is called. And on the page, there's basically 3 sets of resources. One of them, ironically, is help with tax. So, okay, that's really helpful, but you need some money first in order for that to be taxed. The second one is help with exporting. That's good as well if you're an exporter. And I'm sure there are some helpful resources there. And the third one is help with business planning. Now, that seemed to me to be the most relevant, because if I wound the clock back 10 years ago, I would have really benefited from more help with my business plan when I started my first business in 2012. But when you drill down into that resource that the government's providing, what you get to is business plan templates, example business plans. And you've also got a support line you can call for what is described as free advice for startups. Now, again, I'm not knocking any of this. I'm not saying it's useless. It's not. But is that the level of help for our next generation of entrepreneurs that we're going to give if we're going to get the world functioning somewhere close to its full potential in order to generate the wealth, but also the positive social change that comes with wealth? And I don't think it goes anywhere near far enough. So what I'm going to do is, on our socials, I've not formed any final view on what the answer to all of this is yet. I've got my thoughts, but I want to get yours first. So on our socials, we're going to post this intro as a specific piece of content, and I'm going to invite ideas. I'm going to invite small businesses, young entrepreneurs to come forward with either what their challenges are at the moment, or even better, what they think the solutions are. Because as I say, I think we can find solutions to those 2 points. How can young entrepreneurs access capital? How can they access the money they need to get their business up and running? And secondly, how do they get high quality business advice on how they get the business moving towards growth, employing more people, working for more customers, making more money, paying more tax? That's what it's all about. And I don't think the resources that young entrepreneurs have got now are enough. So I want to hear about your challenges, guys. And I also, if you have solutions, I want you to put them forward as well. We'll return to this topic maybe in a couple of weeks' time, 2-3 weeks' time, to give you guys a chance to come forward with your ideas and your suggestions. And what we're going to do then, when I've got all of those together, I will be personally reading every one. And we're going to pull them then into a single resource. And once we're clear on what all of the challenges look like and what all the potential solutions look like, we're going to be trying to put a plan together. But that's not just going to be me. I'm going to be approaching government and asking for their input into this plan, which will help the next generation of entrepreneurs get their businesses up and running. Because ultimately, it's easy for the government to increase taxes. But perhaps what it's harder for them to do is to give new businesses, new entrepreneurs, the tools to generate the income which can be taxed and which can also go into the pockets of those entrepreneurs and their teams to drive positive social change, to drive positive economy, and also to provide more hope and more positivity generally in the people of the world. So this is going to go out as a single piece of content. I want your feedback. Once we've got it all, I'm going to be rattling some bars at the government, and I'm going to be asking for their input, and we're going to see if we can get a plan on the road which everyone can feel really happy about. that's this week's starter for 10. So, as we always do, we've got a question for me to answer. This week it comes from one of our Instagram followers. Stacey's going to keep reminding everyone that if they want to ask me a question about anything, about our business, about business generally, about success, failure, challenge, anything like that, they can do. Really grateful this week. It's an Instagram follower whose name is Ben Hibbert. So Ben, thank you for the question. And let's hear it, please, Jacob.
Hi Simon, just wondering how you combat your work-life balance with obviously being an entrepreneur compared to working in a normal job. I find working in a normal job, you're looking on a lot more time off, but working for yourself, you like to focus on work more. Just wondering what your opinion on that is.
Great. Well, thanks again, Ben. Work-life balance, it's a funny one, isn't it? I've got to say my view is that there's no such thing as a universal work-life balance. What people want in terms of the particular stage of their life they're at, I think is the key here. So for example, what I mean by that is, you try and tell someone who's mid-20s, who's just started their first business and is fighting to keep that sustainable and to win more customers and to keep their staff paid and to look towards their future. You try and telling them that they should spend more time on leisure and that sort of thing. At that stage of their life, they might not want to do that. And I think that if we try and force people into thinking that you do an 8-hour day and then you've absolutely got to pursue your social life or anything like that, I think a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. I think the answer to it for me is, if you are not happy with the way your life is, if you're not fulfilled, if you are feeling constantly anxious, if you're feeling that you're not exercising the skills that you've got, then you need to sit down and think about what it is you need to do to address that. And if that is, for example, that you aren't spending enough time with your family, that is going to make you feel anxious. And that's something which you need to be able to address. And if that means working less, for example, then that's what you should do. But I also don't think anyone should tell you what's right and what is wrong for you. If you want to put a real shift in terms of getting your career up and running, getting your business up and running, that is what I think you should do. And it doesn't mean you've got to do that forever. You can change what you want your work-life balance to look like as you move through your life. So I want very different things in my life now than I did 10, 15 years ago. I do want to have a nice balance between the time I spend with my wife and kids, the time I spend doing the podcast, and my day job as CEO of the Aspiring Group. So I hope that helps. There's no one-cap-fits-all approach. It all depends on what works for you. I balance it now very differently to I did 10 years ago. But the reason I think I've got it all about right, not perfect, but about right, is because I don't feel anxious. I do feel like I enjoy every single day that I've got. And I do think I'm a pretty good dad, I'm a pretty good husband, and I'm pretty good at what I do work-wise. And I've got a bloody good podcast as well. So put all that together, and I think I'm doing okay. But it means for everyone, it's going to be a little bit different. So Ben, thank you very much, my friend. Stacey's going to stay in touch, guys. And if you've got a question for me, I know she's asking some of our previous guests if they've got any questions. And I really, really enjoy answering them on SWCC. Talking of which, we've got to move on to our guest, and let me introduce Angela Spencer. Angela is the founder of Virago Wellness, which is a business who works directly with clients on their journeys of self-discovery. So what Angela basically does, she works mainly with women, almost exclusively with women, in fact. I'm looking forward to ask Angela why that's the case. But she helps her clients achieve their maximum potential in their lives and in their careers. And that can mean anything. It can mean, just to take from the great question I've just been asked, it can mean spending more time with their families. It can mean being better at what they do at work. It can mean a combination of the two. But I'm really excited to talk to Angela because she has not been in business that long, but she has already built up a really good following in terms not just of her social media followers, but also in terms of her reputation and in terms of the clients that she helps. So without further ado, I'm really looking forward to this. Please do relax and enjoy this episode of Success Won't Come Calling with me, Simon Gibson, and my guest, Angela Spencer. And we're here with Angela Spencer. Angela, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. The pleasure is all ours. What are we drinking?
Well, we're actually drinking. I'm looking over at Stacey. So we're actually we're drinking a beautiful Australian Shiraz, which is one of my favourite wines. But it isn't the task I set you.
You can't get the staff.
You can't.
You really can't. I blame the team for everything.
I know. But I did challenge you. So I actually put the challenge forward to get one of my favourite drinks, which is a sparkling Shiraz.
Which I did not know existed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I like the sounds of it.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a bit of bubbles and you can't go wrong with a bit of red wine. So I think the combination is pretty fantastic. And it's one of the drinks I drink when I visit Australia. So I do have family in Australia. My husband's sister and my 2 nieces and my nephew, who I've never met because he was born pre-COVID and we haven't been over there yet. So we tend to try and get over to Australia every couple of years.
And whereabouts in Australia?
See them. They're in Adelaide.
Oh, beautiful.
It's a beautiful place. It's near, the Adelaide Hills wine region, the Barossa Valley. So a huge part of our trips is always, visiting the wineries and, it's just beautiful. So yeah, Australian Shiraz is kind of like the sparkling Shiraz is like the celebratory drink over there, over champagne. So yeah.
Well, I'm celebrating now because I'm really pleased you've come on the podcast. So here's to you and thanks for joining us. Cheers.
Thank you.
Now, your business is Virago Wellness, and you are a self-discovery coach, which I'm really interested to hear about because I've never met a self-discovery coach before. So tell me, what does a self-discovery coach do, and what's your journey in terms of this becoming your business and your profession?
Yeah. Okay, so self-discovery essentially is just about the relationship that you have with yourself. It's about how well you understand who you are and who you truly are. So kind of like taking off all the layers that has been put upon you throughout your life, whether it be, the influences from parents or friends, or, where you work, where you went to school, all of those things, and kind of get to the core of who you are. So self-discovery is about that journey. It's about understanding who you are and understanding what you truly want out of life.
I've got you.
Do you get me?
I certainly do. And I mean, did you arrive at this because I don't know if there is, say, a degree in self-discovery, but did you arrive at this via sort of an academic route, or have you got your own story yourself?
So definitely, obviously I trained, I'm an accredited life coach, but it was something that, it was kind of a journey that I went on myself after kind of reaching a bit of I'd like to say midlife awakening over midlife crisis. But 2019 for me was like a big year. So I have, throughout my life, I've kind of done all the things that you're supposed to do in life. I, graduated from university, walked straight into a job, worked in that job for 14 years, built my career going from different roles within the organization until I finally, ended up in a leadership position. And alongside that in my personal life, married the man of my dreams, had 2 beautiful children, bought our forever home and kind of ticked all the boxes. And in 2019, I went back to work after having my second daughter. And that was kind of, for me, I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like 2019, we just reached the point of fullness in life. We as a family were so busy, both had great careers, both working 9 to 5, Our daughter started school, our youngest was in nursery, and it was just this, full on life. You couldn't catch your feet. It was kind of like hamster wheel,
Yeah.
And I found myself very much living in autopilot mode. And for me, self-discovery is about like literally lifting yourself out of autopilot. So the only way I can describe it, Simon, is that I had everything I'd ever wanted, but I just felt like I lived throughout that year with this kind of underlying level of anxiety that was kind of just like ticking over. And I always describe it as, it's a bit like that feeling, where you've forgotten something.
Yeah.
But you don't know you can't put your finger on it. You're just like all the time, just never fully relaxed. And I think it was just the pace of life. And it was just the fact that I was actually really disconnected from myself. So I had this to-do list. It had, the girls, my husband, the home, the career, all above me. And I was like bottom of the list. I wasn't putting any time aside for myself. And I was literally just trying to catch my feet. So this kind of bubbled away throughout 2019. And it kind of came to a head in the December when I experienced like a couple of panic attacks. And that was a bit like the wake-up call for me, where I was just like, something needs to change here. Like, you need to take yourself from the bottom of the list and put yourself at the top, because all of this that you've built up, your husband, your family, it's not going to survive if you're not looking after yourself. So that was when I embarked on my self-discovery journey. It was almost like I fell into it through necessity, because part of me was breaking, And I always say it wasn't like a massive breakdown. It was like a very silent, quiet one that was just happening, like nobody really knew. And then I just reached a point where I was like, you need to do something. So I went into 2020 and I was like, right, this is the year I put myself first. Obviously with absolutely no idea what 2020 was going to bring for any of us. But that's where I started. And I started with a coach. I've worked with multiple coaches since. I've worked with a therapist. I work with a spiritual teacher, kind of understanding what spirituality means.
And these are coaches who are working with you.
Coaches that I chose to work with on my self-discovery journey.
Oh, so that's what I meant. Sorry, I meant these. You're not working with them professionally. You're working with them to help you on your own journey to fulfillment.
Absolutely.
Got you.
What then happened for me was that I felt so incredible going on this journey and kind of having these aha moments and unlocking my own self-discovery journey, that I was just like, more women need to experience this. I want to be able to help them and support them, and to do that.
There's a couple of things which really resonate with me there. The first thing is this issue. You referred there to sort of things ticking along and this issue of the hamster wheel. There does come a point, I think, in the majority of our lives when I always describe this as the seconds passing slowly and the years going flying by.
Oh, yeah.
And I think particularly when the kids come along, you do settle into such a routine and you're always looking sort of 1 week ahead at what's going on with hobbies and what's going on with childcare and what's going on with holidays and all that sort of thing. And you blink and the kids, I mean, my eldest is in year 6. She's going to high school next year. And it just is incredible when you think of that. So I totally resonate with this fact that things can become so routine driven. I was interested in the point you made about this being a particular issue for women, which I can absolutely recognize. But let's just unpack that a little. Why? Because I know the vast majority of your clients are women. Talk to me. Why would it be women who are particularly impacted by this hamster wheel?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say that I think self-discovery is for everybody. It's incredibly important, whoever you are. I choose to work with women because through my own self-discovery journey. A lot of the things that I unpacked, I didn't quite realize, but they were because I was a girl, because I grew up as a girl, because I was a woman, because I experienced, trying for children, carrying children, delivering children, going back to work after having children, kind of losing myself in motherhood, so to speak. Then I felt like I had a lot of experience with those things. And for me, I've always been incredibly passionate about women and about women using their voice, So I do find that the more women that I work with, the more common things come up. Things like, trying to be somebody else at work versus who they are at home, trying to work and pretend they don't have children, trying to bring up children and pretend they don't work, that whole scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, also women who just spend a disproportionate amount of time trying to please other people, that's a really common thing. And women who spend a disproportionate amount of time focusing on things like their physical appearance. It feels like the women right now are in a pressure cooker of trying to prove that they can have it all and do it all, have successful careers, raise the children, look like Beyonce. And it's hard. And I could see it was hard. I could see it in my friends and my family and the women I worked with. And I was just like, they need some support. They need to get back to the heart of who they are. Stop trying to be someone else and just kind of calm. That's the thing. Like with Virago Wellness, a Virago actually means a warrior woman, a woman of heroic qualities and strength. And that was why I named the business that, was because that was who these women were to me. They were fighters. They were out there. They were trying to do their best. They were trying to succeed in business. They were trying to raise families. And I also saw that they were struggling and I wanted to support them.
Well, first of all, that sounds like a very value-adding support service that you're providing to your clients. What really interests me there is, from the point of view of my own personal experience, I can absolutely recognize everything you're talking about. My wife is a professional as well. She's a nurse. She's qualified. She's very good at what she does. And when we had kids, Sam went part-time. And there was a number of different reasons for that. And I sometimes, when I look back, I remember when me and you were having a chat before the podcast, you look back and you think to yourself, well, hang on, is that fair? Why wasn't it kind of me who goes part-time, and why wasn't she able to continue with a career with the same level of momentum? To me, where it gets difficult is in some of the practicalities, insofar as I think that we're all driven towards this very laudable outcome that there needs to be total equality. And that equality is going to be measured in things like people's take-home pay and things like their job titles and the progression that they have. Whereas what we talk on the podcast is more about success in a more rounded way. That if, for example, if a family operates as a successful whole, with each person in that family contributing to everyone's feelings of fulfillment, well, that surely is more important than just how much money comes into the household or what titles the parents have in their jobs. But it seems to me that a lot of the sort of direction of travel in the media and social media is around, well, why? Why can't everyone earn exactly the same amount? Why can't everyone do, why can't between all the genders, why can't there be an exact equality of outcome? And I just wonder if that causes added pressure.
It's interesting. So I think, for me, that when we think about the world and we think about like an equal world is one where every gender is valued for whatever it is that they choose to do.
Yeah.
And when you think about like pay, of course, I believe that if a woman and a man do the same job, then they should be paid the same for that hour. Now, if you have a woman who decides that she wants to work part-time because it's her choice, like your wife did, and she wanted to spend more time at home, then I think that so much needs to change in society, because there aren't enough jobs out there that pay well, like leadership roles that are on part-time basis, both for men or women when you think about it. So what happens in society at the moment is someone has to make a choice, something has to give, because we don't have very affordable childcare. So most households get themselves in a position where they go, okay, we can't do this anymore. Somebody needs to take a cut in hours. It tends to be more societally acceptable for it to be the woman.
Yeah, I think so.
And actually, is that fair? Because actually, I know a lot of men who would like to play a more present role in parenting,
But it's just not
but perhaps they don't feel like they can ask for it. So actually, change and equality needs to come from people challenging how things are now. And, I still see clients who are made redundant on maternity leave or not valued when they return from maternity leave. And I see women who choose to take a step out when they have children and they find it hard to get back in. So I think society needs to really value the role that women play, and to value, not just mothers, like all women in general, but I'm talking from obviously personal perspective. And what a lot of my clients talk about. And I think you're right, Simon. I think there's often those conversations in families where you go, oh, we can't really both do this, can we? So, what's going to give? And actually, how amazing would it be if we could just start this world from scratch? And if we were creating an equal world, there would be incredible jobs that meant families could work flexibly around, parents could work flexibly around, childcare. But that just doesn't exist. That's not where we are. So we need to get to a point where we need to challenge. And unfortunately, the people that need to challenge and make the change need to be women. And so many of the women that I work with, they're looking for their voice, That self-discovery is the thing that's going to unlock their confidence, their self-worth, so that they can challenge when things aren't right. And for me, that's a big driver of like what I do, because I didn't do this for 14 years. I had a corporate career, as I say, I was in a great leadership position, and it was hard for me to walk away from the job that I'd been working for 14 years, to walk away from that incredible salary. And part of me was doing it to spend more time with my children as well, because what I discovered on my self-discovery journey was that I was suppressing the mother in me, because I wanted to be this proud feminist. I wanted to show them that I could earn as much as their dad and that it was equal. But it reached a point when actually we couldn't do it as a family, and I couldn't do it as a family. But it was happening alongside this thing that was rising in me, which was my confidence and my self-worth. And I was actually at a point where I thought, I think I can do something on my own and have a bigger impact.
There's a number of things there, isn't there? I mean, the first thing is that's almost like an entrepreneurial conclusion as much as anything else, because I do think part of being an entrepreneur is that future forecasting, which allows you to assess what you will enjoy more, what will bring you more value as a person, what will work for you and the family better financially and practically. So that interests me as a sort of a standalone conclusion. But you mentioned something there about feminism. The simple fact, the data says that leadership positions, that's CEO positions, it's management positions, it's leadership positions, there's still a disparity between women and men. And if I look at our board at Spirant, we've got 2 out of 7 are women. They're both mothers. They've got families. Their husbands, I know, work full time. What interests me about it is the challenge that businesses face is that I rally against the idea that people should progress on anything other than merit. And the reason for that is, I look at the two women on my board, and the idea that they've got where they are due to any reason other than they deserve it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Seems to me to be totally offensive to them and to other women in the business, because it basically says, if you say, well, you know, if there was a comment like, we need to prioritize a certain class of people for progression, I would just feel very disrespectful towards those people, because it suggests that they're not progressing on the basis of merit. How can we balance that? Because that may be right or it may be wrong. That's the way I feel, that you want to reward people because they're great at what they do. But how do we balance that with the stone cold fact that for whatever reason, women are still not equal? They're not owning those roles, those salaries, those positions in a proportionate number. How do we balance those two issues?
Well, I understand what you're saying, Simon. And I think if it was a level playing field, then you'd be right. Mm-hmm. It should be based on merit. But I think the problem in society is that it's not a level playing field.
Yeah.
And it never has been. The world was built around male patriarchy, as you said. So therefore, how can women succeed at their own merit when they're already behind? They're already coming from a place of behind. It's like they didn't start the race at the same place. So there has to be that element considered and brought into it.
Yeah.
Women have to work twice as hard in order to catch up. I think we need to consider that as well, because we're not starting from an equal place.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to me the statistics definitely support what you're saying. So with that fact, when you have a new client who comes to you, who has recognised that they haven't achieved the fulfilment in their life or their career or their family circumstances, what are some of the issues that you try and get out onto the table, first of all, before you start working with them? So
the first thing that I would want to understand is, what does fulfillment mean to them? Because quite often, you can have a client come to me and they'll say, I want to have achieved this, and I want to have achieved this and done this and this. And then actually what happens when you start working with them is that what they wanted to achieve wasn't actually about them. It's quite often about other things, whether it be, influences from parents is very common, or just what they think they should be doing because of like what they see on social media, So actually what we do with self-discovery is we get to the heart of actually, what do you want? And sometimes the most powerful question that I can ask a client is, don't talk to me about all the things that you want to achieve. Don't talk to me about all the things you haven't achieved. Talk to me right now about how you want your life to feel. And that's when we get to the heart of it. Because when we understand how they want their life to feel, that's then we can start to work on, okay, so what do you think is going to help you actually feel like that? And 9 times out of 10, it's nothing to do with what they first came to me for.
Do you ever when someone comes to you like that, is there ever issues which perhaps you need to signpost clients elsewhere to address? I'm thinking here, for example, you made the point earlier about social media. Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the issues I have with social media is through no particular fault of anyone, sometimes we can open Instagram and it really does look as if every person other than yourself is stunning looking, lives a life of absolute happiness, and has every one of their wishes sort of unimpeded. And that can be a little bit what's the word? It can be a bit demoralising, I think, sometimes, particularly for someone who maybe isn't in the place they want to be. How often do you get a new client who you think has been influenced by unrealistic expectations which perhaps are portrayed?
Yeah. Well, that's a really important point because as a coach, I consider myself a real coach. I live in the real world. I have a mortgage. I have a family, and I'm not trying to sell a lifestyle to my clients. All I want my clients to do is to feel better and more fulfilled in their life and to feel empowered to make better decisions for themselves. So yes, we do talk about things like comparison on social media. One of the most important things is trying to, with self-discovery is trying to put down the social media because this is one of the reasons I think we're so disconnected from ourselves these days. Because I do believe that inside us, we've got all the answers. We probably wouldn't need coaches. We probably wouldn't need life coaches. But it's the fact that we live in this always on world where, those quiet moments where you think things through, those quiet moments when you have these epiphanies, they exist less and less these days. Because any quiet moment that we have, what do? Pick up our phone.
You do?
And we get lost in another world. So actually, yes, I think the very fact that they're sat with me face to face and they're not looking at their phone, they're not being influenced by anything else, that's when they have these moments. And honestly, I come off some of my calls and I'm always like to Neil, my husband, I was like, it was so good. Like she had the best epiphany, she had the best aha moment. And it's just the power of actually sitting and switching off from everything else and giving yourself that time, allowing yourself that time.
I mean, the problem, isn't it, is that we're surrounded by options to sort of distract ourselves from those moments of epiphany.
Yeah.
And it is a problem. I mean, I want to come back to this. We're gonna take a short break, guys. It's half time. It's been fascinating the first half to speak to Angela. We're going to touch a lot more on the work you do. And also, I want to just in the second half, I just want to address this point of how should someone recognize that they need your help and that they need to work with a coach. So I want to come back to that. So it's halftime, guys. Stick with us. Sponsorship slot. And we're back for part 2 with Angela Spencer. It's halftime, friends. The podcast today is brought to you by Virtual Signature. If you have a business where you need your clients to sign documents electronically, securely and efficiently, then Virtual Signature is the business for you. We're going to have the links on our socials. If you contact them and mention that you heard from them when you listen to the podcast, they will give you a 6-star service rather than their usual 5-star service. So thank you to Virtual Signatures. And now it's back to the podcast. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Angela Spencer. How are you, Angela?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, about the same as you were in part 1.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much so far. And it's lovely to have you again. Thanks for doing this. I wanted to just talk a bit more about your actual work with clients. Am I right in thinking you do one-to-one work, but also group work?
Yeah, I do. I do group coaching with a maximum of 6 women, all online.
Yeah.
So that's amazing because you can kind of get women from, different walks of life, different cities across the UK. And you get that sort of connection and that support from each other quite instantly, almost from like week 1. So yeah, one-to-one is incredible because it's very focused. You get so much out of an hour when it's one-to-one. But group coaching is also very powerful if you are wanting to go on your self-discovery journey with other supportive women because they empower each other. So they all finish and they've risen together. A lot of them stay in touch and support each other on their journey after group coaching. Yeah.
That's amazing. So these women contact you independently of one another as new clients. And is that right, first of all?
No. So how it worked for me was when I started Virago, I didn't have like a thought out strategy at all. Like I was literally just following my heart and following what felt good. So the first thing, I was working with one-to-one clients already. I started doing it for free because that's how you learn. I'd become an accredited coach, but I wanted to get up my hours. I was doing one-to-one for free. And then I started to get paying clients. And I in my career previously, I'd worked in culture and engagement. I'd done so many like presenting roles throughout my career. So I'm quite confident presenting. And therefore I thought, right, I'll do, like online workshops. This is height of COVID as well. So, people needed something.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
needed something to connect with, support with their wellness journey, support with confidence. So I started to run some online workshops. And then I thought, at the end of one of my workshops, I might just promote a group coaching thing and see if anyone bites, if anyone's up for it. So I did that, and I was like maximum of 6 women. And within the first week, 12 women signed up. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I ran it on a Tuesday and a Thursday. I did two separate groups of 6 women. And I followed a process called Embrace Your Truth. And we went through 4 weeks of immersion into self-discovery for them to understand their values, unpick their belief systems that they held about themselves, let go of limiting beliefs that were holding them back, and for them to just embrace their purpose and their path in life. And I just loved it, absolutely loved it. And what I really like about group coaching is that it's a bit more accessible from a price point as well, because it's
Sure.
cheaper. Because obviously, my time is divided between the 6 women. So therefore, if you're new to coaching, if you're new to self-discovery, it's a lot more affordable way to give it a go. What then happened? And again, it wasn't my business strategy. I wish I could say it was. But then I found that women who did the Embrace Your Truth group coaching then went on to sign with me on a one-to-one basis. So I think around 70% of my one-to-one clients now came from Embrace Your Truth group coaching. So it just feels like the right thing to do. I've always loved bringing people together and that connection and women supporting each other and rising up together. So I just love group coaching. I love it. So I advertise it as a group coaching, and the women who sign up, the first 6 women who sign up, come on board and we go with it.
You mentioned about this issue of identifying belief systems that perhaps hold people back.
Yes.
Do you find there's a common theme in that ever within a particular group?
Yeah, there's always themes, unfortunately. And one of the most common beliefs that, limiting beliefs that anyone holds about themselves is that they're not enough. That is one of the most common limiting beliefs. And it comes from so many different things. Obviously, everybody's journey is different. It could be bullying at school. It could be, abandonment issues that come from childhood. It could be just like one comment by one teacher at a very vulnerable age that honestly stays with people. And it comes up. And, when we do the Limiting Beliefs Week, it is always really emotional. And I've actually introduced like a relaxation Reiki session afterwards now, because it was always so powerful. And there's tears. And it blew me away, took me by surprise, because people are at their most vulnerable when they're talking about their belief systems, and they're talking about things that happened that they've held on to themselves, they've held on within them for so long, and just talking about it. One time a boyfriend said this to me, one time my boss said this to me, something my dad used to say, or something my mum used to say, a teacher said this to me. It's always the things that have been said to them, that stick with them. So there's a lot around not being enough. Sadly, there's a lot as well around body image and image in general for women. I remember one session where one woman told me that she won't go to that she will cancel at the last minute a social occasion if she doesn't feel that she looks good enough to go to this social occasion. So based on her physical appearance, she won't go. She'll just cancel and say she's sick. And I was like really shocked by that. And then these other 2 women were like, hand up and like, yeah, I do that as well. And I just thought, oh my God, these are amazing women who've got contributions to make that are literally, they're not at the table because they don't think they look good enough.
And do you think that's a new issue that we're facing, or is it something which has always been there, but we just don't talk about it enough?
I don't think it's new at all. I think that it's, there has always been a pressure on women to look and act a certain way since media started. And it's even more prevalent now, like you said, Simon, with social media and how people filter themselves and filter their lives. But that is the type of stuff that just gets me so angry, and I do have moments where I go, who am I to talk about empowering women when we've got a situation in Afghanistan, the situation in Texas, where literally women in this world are completely disempowered? I think to myself, who am I to talk about empowering women? But if I can make one woman think, do you know what? I'm going to leave that crap to one side and I'm going to go to that occasion. I'm going to turn up to that event because I deserve to be there, because I'm worthy of being there despite what I look like, then that matters to me. That's a step forward,
Of course, and particularly within the context of your work as a coach, then
Absolutely.
that's the impact you can make on your client is obviously what you're focused upon.
It is. It's huge.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because on this issue of body image, the point I've always thought of is we're all our own biggest critics, aren't we? In terms of the way you feel about the way your hair looks, or your weight, or how big your ears are, or I'm thinking about myself here, by the way, I don't think other people are as concerned as we sometimes persuade ourselves they might be, but I still recognise that it is important. How do you go breaking down those concerns about self-image in terms of the way you work with clients?
Well, you're right, Simon. It's never really about the body. It's never really about the outfit. It's never really about the face. It's about how you choose to support yourself. It's about your inner critic, like you said. It's about that negative self-talk that exists. Once you take that away, then the body no longer becomes an issue. So it's like the classic kind of like, look at picture of a time of yourself when you thought you were overweight, and you look back at the picture and you go, oh, I wasn't overweight at all. Like, what was I bothered about? It's never really about what you look like. It's about how you feel about yourself. So as a coach, I'll work with the women on building up their self-worth and get them to understand actually that they are a unique and incredible person who has something to offer this world. And actually, they can let go of all of the expectations that is put upon them from people in their family or media or social media. Let's get to the heart of who you are, why you're here, and allow yourself to be seen and allow yourself to be heard.
Yeah, and that's all about individual contribution, isn't it? And I mean, how do you build someone up? Because there's a lot about confidence there, isn't there? And without confidence, the issues such as body image can appear much more challenging. How do you go sort of building someone's confidence who, as you've said earlier, they could have been carrying around with them for years? Particularly our boyfriend said this, or a dad said that, or a teacher or a boss. How do you go about addressing that and perhaps getting a client to let go?
Oh, it's such a process and it's so unique to everybody. But what I like to do is I like to understand, actually the process of talking about it, of talking about this time, this person said this. That's stage one of letting it go, because they've never said that before to anyone, because of shame or because they didn't even really realize until they went on a self-discovery journey that was holding them back. So it's actually that stage one is like talking about it. And then we'll work on like challenging that belief. So tell me about things that have happened in your life that contradict what that person said to you. And, and let's start working on that. And if it's something like body image, then we'd work on, well, what are you doing to feel good about your body? How are you moving your body? And, sometimes women will say, well, I'm not moving it at the moment because feel embarrassed about going to the gym or whatever. So, okay, well, what could you do? And it's just about empowering them, putting it back in their hands, because we all have the power to make changes in our lives if we want to do it enough. But we have to be the people to take the steps. And sometimes all you need is that cheerleader to empower you to take those steps. And once I see them taking the steps, then it becomes something that happened ages ago. Oh yeah, once a guy said this to me, but do you know what? It doesn't matter anymore because I get up every day and I do this and I do that. And actually I feel really good about myself.
So it's about replacing those negative memories with more positive experiences.
Absolutely, absolutely. And most women, when you pay them a compliment, what do?
They'll usually try to persuade you that they don't look as good as you say they do.
It's like, oh, I love your top. Oh, it was $5 from Primark. They diminish themselves. They put themselves down. And actually, I teach my clients to accept compliments, sometimes to write them down, to repeat them to themselves. It's just a process of rebuilding it up, because it's got to start with you. Self-worth, self-respect, self-love all starts with self. And unfortunately, we live in a world where we try and get that validation from elsewhere, but it won't ever happen. You cannot seek validation from elsewhere and fully find it. It has to come from you. And that's the steps that coaching gives you.
So if there's a woman who's listening to the podcast who has got this belief system that's being fueled by a negative past experience, is their first port of call to touch base with a self-discovery coach such as yourself, who will then begin to work with them to break down the associations they've got with that negative experience?
Well, I think that a lot of people don't even reach that point of understanding when they start working with a coach. I think the thing that you will know that you need to go on a self-discovery journey if you are feeling a bit lost. That's very common.
Yeah.
People will say, I feel like this is a good time for me to do this because I just feel lost. Or I just feel disconnected. That feeling I described of that low-level anxiety that's just like ticking away.
You're not quite sure why you feel anxious.
You're not quite sure why. Yeah. It's not enough to go and see a doctor, but you feel like, I just don't feel quite right. I think that's where it starts. And it doesn't have to be a coach. Obviously, I'm a coach. I'm going to be promoting myself, but start with reading a book about self-discovery. Start by listening to a podcast about self-discovery. Start your self-awareness journey by writing in a journal. At the end of the day, how did I feel today? Just that simple thing of how did I feel today, and connecting to your emotions more is an amazing way to start.
Yeah.
And then if you reach a point where you want to delve further, then absolutely, reach out to a coach. I always say an amazing place to start is group coaching, because there's nothing better than that feeling of all being in it together and supporting each other. And yeah, you learn from other people's experiences. So the women in my coaching, they'll end up kind of coaching each other. It's part of the process, which is amazing to see.
Yeah, because like you said earlier, if common themes are at play, even just realizing that you're not the only one who has built these beliefs is very empowering and very confidence building.
It comes up all the time. And then you have other women who'll be like, I can't believe you believe that about yourself. I've been sat here thinking, wow, she's amazing. She's this, she's this, she's that. And it's very empowering.
Definitely. I'm going to start thinking about the future now in terms of what's in the pipeline for Virago Wellness and you. First of all, just tell me, in terms of, you described so powerfully earlier how you'd reached this position where you were, by any measurement, a success. You were a mum, you were a wife, you'd done fantastically in the corporate world, but you'd reached this point where you'd recognized the need to change. How do you feel now in terms of a comparison with the way you felt then?
Oh, do you know what? I feel like 2019 was like a tidal wave and I was just being carried along. And how would I describe now? I think I would say it's like swimming in a lake now. And I still hit currents, uneasy currents, and I'm still have to, kind of use my toolkit. But the point is I've got the toolkit now and I feel calm. And the difference is I am so conscious of the decisions that I make being for my well-being and being aligned to who I am, because I've done the self-discovery work and I continue to do it. That's part of the day job now. I've got to work on myself in order to show up for my clients. So because I'm continuing to do that work, every decision I make, I'm making it on my behalf. I'm making it for me, for my family. And I still get things wrong, I still make wrong decisions. And then the difference now is that I recognize it and I'll look back and I'll reflect and think, oh, okay, I know why I said that, or I know why I did that, but I won't do it next time. And it's that awareness that I think just makes such a difference to your life. There's a quote by Oscar Wilde. It's one of my favorite quotes. And it says, "To live is one of the rarest things. Most people exist, and that is all." And that was for me, 2019 was existing. 2021 is living.
I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, that's very moving. That the point you've just made about getting things wrong and finding that a positive experience rather than a negative one, that's something I've found as the years have gone on. I used to have a real problem with being wrong about anything, particularly in a business perspective. Because when I first of all, I qualified as a lawyer before I sort of went into the more general business world. And as a lawyer, you're sort of paid to get things right, or you're at least paid to advise right. And that means that if your advice is bad or your the conclusions you reach are bad, that's a bad position to be in. And over the years, what I've come to realize is that when you get something wrong, or when someone says you're wrong, if they're correct, that's a really freeing experience when you acknowledge it.
Absolutely.
Because if someone says, listen, you were bang out of order then. And if they're correct in that, and if you reflect and think, do you know what, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. That is really a wonderful position of self-awareness to reach. Whereas if you double down and you think, I can't be wrong. Yeah. It's just not possible. I'm a bad person if I'm wrong. I'll look an idiot if I'm wrong. I'll look vulnerable. I'll look weak. Well, all you're doing there is like building up a wall of negativity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas I now that I'm in a position where if someone says who I work with or at home, look, you're not right there.
Yeah.
Because I respect those who I surround myself enough that they will only say that to be transparent. I feel a lot more free to get things wrong and learn from it.
You do. A huge part of self-discovery is about self-forgiveness, which you need when you get things wrong. To be human is to be imperfect. So we're always going to get things wrong. But being able to, like you say, accept it in a humble way, forgive yourself, it improves your relationships with other people as well. So self-discovery fundamentally is about the relationship you have with yourself. The knock-on effect is you create deeper and more meaningful relationships with other people.
Yeah.
Because you can be the bigger person. You can have that conversation where you say, I was wrong, I understand why I was wrong. And I'm sorry. I'm still learning, because that's life. We're all learning. We're all on a self-discovery journey. It's just that some people, like you say, are on different places when it comes to their self-awareness.
And you're right about building the sort of strength of your relationship with people, because I'm thinking particularly in business, it also helps you tell other people when they're wrong.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And if you've got that mutual respect, and this certainly can apply to personal relationships as well, telling people that they next time should do something different is really helpful.
Oh yeah.
even
definitely.
even if the person disagrees with you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I make a decision and someone would say, I don't agree with you there. And I remain happy with what I've done. But even that's positive, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
that interaction on the right and wrongs of any particular decision or
Yeah.
course of action. Then it's better, isn't it, than just all letting things fester?
Absolutely. Do you know, I was working with a client and we were working on her confidence. And I remember I was talking to her about small wins. I was saying, you tell me about a small win that's happened this week that you know there's a change happening in you. And she told me this story about how she was in a work meeting and something happened and it made her emotional and she cried in a work situation. She cried. And she said, "Do you know what, Ange? My first thing that I would usually do in that situation is that I would apologize and I would be embarrassed about showing emotion. And I would have then almost by apologizing taken away from the situation that had actually made me cry." But what she said she found the confidence to do in the meeting was to say, she gave herself a moment, she composed herself, and then she said, okay, that just happened. I'm not going to apologize for crying because firstly, I want to tell you what drove that emotion. And the power of her doing that for those people in that meeting and making them realize that actually it's not okay to make someone cry, you know?
No.
And actually that's how I see a woman like making challenges that will actually change cultures in organizations.
Yes.
You know, the more men and women who can have that level of self-awareness where they can be vulnerable enough to speak their truth and say something like that. I was so proud of it. I just thought, wow, imagine if everybody in business could be that brave.
Yes.
You know, cultures would change overnight.
Interesting. I think you're right. I'm sorry to say we're about 5 minutes away from them, but we've got to kind of wrap up. And I know you've got to shoot off because you're so busy. What's next for Virago Wellness in terms of, as we sit here, 2021, you're 2 years into this excellent journey that you've been on, which has left you feeling so much more empowered and positive than this hamster wheel you were on. So in over the years ahead, what's your plans for your business?
I just feel so excited about the future. I feel like there's still so much to go after. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and a big part of my life is just enjoying them and being really present in this moment. But then I'm always like at the back of my head, right, when the little one starts school, I want to do this and I want to do that. But for me, Virago started during the pandemic. So far it's all been over screen. So the next thing for me is face-to-face events. And like I said earlier, I'm all about connection and bringing people together. So bringing people together physically, I'm really excited about.
Because that could really work with the
I
groups, couldn't
cannot
it?
wait. Yeah, like whether it be, workshops or whether it be retreats in the future, and just getting women together, having these empowering conversations. I can't wait to do that. So that's definitely the next big thing. And then beyond that, different ways to reach different people. So, I've loved this. I'd love to see a Virago podcast. That would be amazing.
Do you know what? I think you should definitely consider it. I still think that we're relatively early in the era of the podcast. And what I mean by that is, this is an environment where we can take our time to discuss relatively complex issues. You can't do that in a social media post. You can't do that in obviously something like a PR release. And the ability to be able to do a relatively deep dive as we have today, I think is still a huge opportunity for, particularly in the business world. I'm not aware of too many really high quality business podcasts in terms of a business promoting themselves and promoting their people. So I would definitely think about it.
It's all about stories, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stories empower you. Hearing someone else's story can change your life. That's certainly been, what I found when you read a book, listen to a podcast, even a song, I really am about that connection between person to person. So yeah, I think that podcasts can do that. They can create that connection where you think, yeah, I can see myself in that person. They've inspired me. I'm going to take action now.
Yeah,
Love
I
that.
think so.
Yeah.
In terms of if someone is listening to this, who some of the issues we've touched upon have resonated, should they reach out to you via your Instagram page and your website? How does the procedure work?
Absolutely. So yeah, you can contact me, via my email through my website, or, you can sort of message me through Instagram. Certainly connect with me. I think that's what a lot of people do with Coaches First. They watch, they see their posts, they see what resonates. And, a lot of people who come to me, they're like, oh, I've been following you for about 6 months and I love your posts. And I finally thought, right, now's a good time to connect with you. So yeah, just connect. I'd love to.
Because I've seen you are building up quite a decent following on Instagram. I had a look at that and you've got lots of followers, haven't you? And it does seem to be really increasing.
It's happened organically, which I'm really proud of. And yeah, it's good. You tend to attract people that agree with you. And what's really nice actually was the other day, the first time it's ever happened, someone came over to me at the beach and said, are you Virago Wellness?
Oh, that's fantastic.
I know. And you know what? It was a man. And he said to me, oh, I know I'm not really your target audience, but I just want to say your posts really resonate with me. So that was lovely. Really nice.
When I'm on the beach, people keep coming over and saying, are you Harry Hill? I just say, no, unfortunately not. Never mind. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Angela. Let me finish off with the same question that I ask all of my guests, which is, what does success mean to you?
So success to me is living a life of fulfillment, whatever that means to you, whether it's your job that fulfills you or your family or a hobby. But it's just that feeling of, when you go to bed and you're like, right, I'm in the right place. I'm on the right path. That's fulfillment to me.
And the great thing about what you do, of course, is you help people reach that position.
I certainly hope so.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Angela. I wish you the very best of luck with Virago Wellness. It's been really inspirational talking to you. I'm sure your clients find it very inspirational working with you as well. So thank you for coming to see us on the podcast. We'd certainly love to see you back here to see how you've gone on. But in the meantime, thank you again. And let's give a round of applause for Angela Spencer.
Oh, thank you so much.